Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehakol niyeh b'dvaro. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'bracha, everybody. Ooh, hot coffee. A real wake up. What do you believe? That there's life on other planets? Maybe they came to this planet and they saw how unintelligent we are. Therefore, they figured, we're going to leave these imbeciles to their own. Or do you believe that we're the ultimate in creation? If we evolve from the ape, well, we could definitely evolve much more than we have evolved till now and become a higher form. Hey, well, who knows? Maybe that's AI. We've created a greater being than ourselves, right? Just like the ape created a greater being than themselves, or evolved rather. So we will evolve and we'll all become AI. Pray tell, I hope you don't believe that. If you do, we need to have a talk. Welcome to Tanya today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zuch and Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. L'chaim, l'chaim v'rocha, on some morning coffee. All right. We are in the seventh letter of Igeres HaKodesh, the Alter Rebbe's holy letters. And in this letter, we are discussing God and creation. The essence of God is indivisible. Indivisible. There's not higher or lower, greater or lesser, because that would be a foolish statement when we speak about the essence of God. Right? That there's, this is, God is really way above and beyond. And but this, he's not so, no, because there's nothing close to him at all. And therefore, we are all equally this world, the spiritual world, the world of Atzilus, where the souls are in Gan Eden, Garden of Eden, before the essence of God. We are all nothing, no thing, and equally no thing. And yet at the same time, God permeates all of creation in an equal fashion, not in a way that he's vested within creation and is limited by anything of creation, though. At the same time, we have also God's name, which is already a contraction on the essence of God. And even from that contraction, because it's a name, right? It's already something. That name of God, from it emits a light, a radiation, which is a further contraction. There we can talk about higher and lower, lesser or more. The higher spiritual worlds get more of that light. This world gets less of that light. And that's why in this world, it's what we call a double darkness, that you can sit in the dark and think that you're sitting in the light. That's how removed God is in the ray of light that animates this world. It is so contracted, so little, that what comes out on the other side in creation is something very limited. So with this now, we can understand how this radiation of God's light continues the Alter Rebbe in the teachings, that it descends by means of numerous contractions until it animates beings, creates them, forms them, makes them. Creates them is the world of Bria, forms them the world of Yetzirah, and makes them the world of Asiya, the three basic created worlds. Now, in doing so, God does that when we speak about a ray of light in a general sense with 613 rays of light. Why? Because there's 613 commandments of the Torah. There are 600, right? So there's 613, so to speak, conduits of light that are the creative force of God of this world based on the commandments. And indeed, why are there 613 commandments? Well, that's further reflected in the fact that the person's soul and a body comprises, and the soul itself, of 600, also 613, 248 organs and 365 sinews, which means that the soul is made up of 613 elements. That's the point over here, which is a reflection of the 613 commands of God, right? Now, which means that the light of God in the creative force is mainly meant for man, for the human being who has a soul, because that soul's made up of 613 in order to be vested, infused with that light of God of 613. All souls, whether they're souls that are in Bria, Yetzirah, or Asiya, whatever level, right? Because the ultimate purpose is man. Adam is the term, right? What comes out of this? What we just said. When we speak about the essence of God, there's no such thing as parts. And therefore, God is equally above and below. There's no distinction. There's no higher, there's no lower. But when we speak about a radiation of the light of God that comprises of 613, it permeates the soul in 613 components, which means there's different parts that radiates the soul, 613 basic parts. There we can speak about having a part of godliness. Now that's in general. If you go more specific, right? Every commandment. So there might be one commandment to pray, for example, right? There's one commandment to pray. Another commandment to say the Shema, another commandment for tefillin, another commandment for Shabbos. So that's the general commandment. But each one of those commandments are subdivided into many, many laws that make up the parameter of Shabbos, make up the parameter of prayer. And as a matter of fact, they make up the, without end, because there's always another, angle about the law, that there might be a new circumstance that you need to know what the law would be. So in a sense, the law of prayer is ad infinitum. There's no end to it. Because you'll have a new question based on a new circumstance about prayer. So in that sense, it's without number. Countless details. Which means the light of God that animates that law, because that law is the will of God. It's God's wisdom. It's his ray of light that animates the world as a result. So even though we have 613 parts of the divine radiation, that's in general. More specifically, we have ad infinitum, rays of light that are the source of animating ourselves and this world around us, which is interesting. When we speak about generality of the body, so you're going to say 248 organs, 365 sinews. How many cells do you have? How many? 30 trillion. Every cell is life, is animation, right? So much so is a cell life that from one cell you can reproduce an entire body. It has the entirety of the body. So means that all the laws of the Torah that are the rays of light that are giving vitality specific are without end parts of divine radiation, divine light that we have a part of. Now, who is the first one who had a part of this? Kind of imbued their very soul. Guess what? Man. You know what man is called? Adam. 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 He was a soul that comprised in it all the souls. Right? And as we said, the soul is basically generally divisible into 613. But more specifically, Adam's soul was divisible into innumerable sparks. There'll be a question over here, but we won't deal with it right now, which means all the souls of Israel from the days of the patriarchs, the 12 tribes, up into including the coming of Mashiach. And this is the idea that the children of Israel will be like the sand of the sea that cannot be measured nor counted because of the great quantity. Like we're saying, that great quantity of the rays of light of God. So Adam was the embodiment of all the souls. Wow. So being that Adam's soul comprised all these innumerable sparks of individual souls, 613 general, innumerable sparks, so he was capable of receiving the infinitely numerous details and the emanations of the radiance of the supreme will of God, which ultimately animates all of the individual Jewish souls. Very powerful. What does that mean? Well, in tomorrow's and the forthcoming classes, we'll understand what that means in having a part of God. As he was the embodiment of all the souls of the Jewish people. Which through that is also the embodiment, ultimately of all of humanity. Which is the idea that the Jewish people are a light unto the nations. Because it's through the soul of the Jewish people that will bring light to the nations of the world. It's just as Adam, he brought light, or he was the embodiment of all of the light of God that animated the souls of the Jewish people, because he incorporated inside of him and being a part of him. But where that goes, we're going to see in the forthcoming classes or next class. It's a very powerful idea over here then. So a couple of things. One is Adam, so human, right? The soul is the only thing that can incorporate, and it's meant for the light of God. As the light of God is, what's his light? It's his will. When does a person, so to speak, illuminate? When they have a desire. If you have no desire for anything, in what way do you live? You're almost like comatose. Because you have a desire for something, there's any kind of movement of your being. You have desire to understand, so you're using your brain to think. You have desire to communicate, so you speak. You desire to, have some coffee, so you pick up the cup and l'chaim. Right? The desire is that motivator. So God has a desire, 613 of them. It's general. But he has also a very specific one. Like prayer is a general one. Specifically is that a blessing is made over the coffee when it comes to prayer. Very specific. Now, that's a spark that comes from the ray. And all of that is just to say is the vital force that comes from God that animates not just us, of course, us, but the entire universe. It animates everything. So the source of everything is the will of God that is expressed in his divine wisdom of the 613 commandments. And therefore, to elicit it, of course, that means you need to be aligned with that. Adam was aligned with it in his very soul, of all the souls. He lost that with his sin, and that then kind of was given over to someone else, which we'll speak about tomorrow. But he first was the embodiment of it. He lost it. And therefore, he's not the father of the Jewish people, even though he embodied it originally, but he's not. He's not the father of the Jewish people, right? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they are forefathers, not Adam. Even though Adam here isn't, we say he's an embodiment of all the Jewish souls. He was, but he lost that privilege, if you will. In any case, what's important over here in our context is that the animating force of God is his commandments of the Torah, the specification of Jewish law, and that's what illuminates the soul of each and every single one of us. So, of course, to be aligned with Torah and mitzvahs, therefore, is what's going to bring that illumination into our soul in the appropriate manner. That's one thing. Second thing is, of course, then the ultimate purpose of creation is Adam, man, that we should illuminate ourselves with and be aligned with God. And then the third point is that illumination is not just in a general way, 613, but in the specifications of Jewish law. And a fourth point is that Adam is the embodiment of all the souls. Right? Well, um, yes. Okay. I hope that's clear. Deborah has a question. Was Adam not the father of Abraham? No. Abraham came 10 generations after Adam. He was the father of Cain and Abel and others, right? Um, and so, yeah, came 10 generations afterwards. John, was there not 600,000 souls of Adam and Hashem blew into his nostrils? Yeah, so it's a good question about the 600,000. I'm not certain about that. I have to look into that. Good question. Very good question. I have to look into that to how, we say 613 and now there's 600,000 general souls. So I have to see how that works out. Okay, good. So that Paul and Brett have questions. Um, Brett, God created everything in this world. Is it correct to say that all living beings have a common ancestor? Ancestor? Adam is not the ancestor of trees and animals, right? I've told this in just last week. I'll tell it again. Brett, you've heard this more than once from me, but the 7-year-old girl who asks her mother, where do we come from? She says, from God, goes to daddy, and daddy says, we come from the apes. She's confused, goes back to mommy. What's going on, mommy? From my side of the family, you come from God. From daddy's side of the family, you come from apes. So, do we have a common ancestor? The only common, and I wouldn't use the term ancestor. The only commonality we have is that we come from God. I don't think that's called an ancestor, though. Adam is not the ancestor of the animals because animals were created before him. He's not the ancestor of trees. They were created before him. So, the common ancestor or the commonality is the light of God that animates. But the point that we're making over here is that the whole purpose of the light of God that is animating the world, right, is for us, for man, for Adam. That's the hope that is clear. Yes, Adam, Adama, Dam. Yes, very good. I'm missing a question here. I don't see. So there is a question here that I'm missing. What is man's purpose? Ah, Paul. to align ourselves with God. That's our purpose. So for Jewish people, 613 commandments, which, many of them are not applicable until Mashiach comes, right? That's our purpose, to do what God wants. His will, he wills 613 commandments that are, so to speak, parts of divinity, right? Parts of divinity. And when we fulfill the commandments, so we have that part. Anyway, more on that's going to come, but that's where we're going with this. Okay, any other questions? All right, amazing. Rambam is coming up, folks. Anything here? I don't see. All right, folks. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to the Chabad Zurich and Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure